You want to get started?
Yeah, sounds great. Hey everyone, my name is Amy. Thank you so much for joining us for the Rancher Overview training. I am joined by Denise, and my name is Amy again. And here's our social media handles if you want to go ahead and follow us. So today's objectives are we're going to do a technical introduction to Rancher. We'll definitely try to keep the slides to a minimum. There's only a handful of slides after this. And after I show these slides, what I'm going to do is do a lot of demoing. As always, questions are always welcome, and at the end of this presentation, we'll make sure to answer all of your questions. This demo is about an hour or so long, so we always stay longer than an hour to make sure all of your questions are answered. And also make sure to check out the question section in your Go Webinar Control panel. And you can also ask questions there. Denise will be helping me to answer some questions. So next, what I want to do is send out a poll question. Denise, if you could help me out and press that button. It seems like I'm having... There we go. So thank you so much. So this quick poll will ask you how familiar you are with Rancher and containers. And if you could go ahead and select one of those options, it does a lot to help us understand where you are with working with Rancher. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, and we'll definitely go back to checking that out after we are done with this demo, so it can help us with collect more information. So again, after this demo, you should definitely go ahead and check out some of our resources. We have docs.rancher.com, so that's where we keep all of our documentation for Rancher. The next resource that we have are forums. This is where both our community and our software engineers can interact with y'all. And it's a great resource. A lot of our engineers are there to help answer questions. We have announcements, as well as other awesome forum threads. And lastly, definitely join us on Rancher's user Slack. This is an even more interactive way to talk to our community members as well as our engineers. Also, this is a great resource for after our demo. If you have more questions that perhaps are unanswered or that you just thought of afterwards, definitely go onto that Slack. So in our demo today, we'll be going through a lot of key topics. So the first thing is obviously setting up Rancher. We'll be talking about access control so that no one else can access your Rancher instance. We'll be talking about creating environments, attaching private registries, adding hosts and resources to your environments, creating stacks and services, and don't worry if you don't understand all these terms right now. I'll definitely be going through and explaining to you what everything means. We'll be talking about load balancers and service discovery. I'll be clicking through the UI and interacting with the Rancher API and CLI. I'll be talking about the Rancher catalog as well as demoing a setup of Kubernetes on Rancher, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and escape now and go ahead to the Rancher instance I have up. Or actually, let's go ahead and go to the quick start so I can explain to you what our setup looks like. So the way that our setup is today is that I'm using the Rancher server latest tag, and latest is just tagged to the latest release, which today it's version 1.6.3. We're using a single container and non-HA setup, so you can see documentation on that here under installing Rancher and Rancher server. There's a lot of documentation about that, as well as other setups that you may want to have. Today I'll also be using, today my setup also has the internal MySQL database. This is more just if you want to kind of play around with Rancher server, and if you're not doing this in a production setting. What we actually recommend is for you to use this option, the external database. The reason you should point your Rancher server to an external database is because it can handle more load. You can do different configurations with that. And let's go ahead and go back to the quick start guide. So what I actually have is a DigitalOcean droplet, and what I've done is I have Docker installed on that, and I've also run this command with the latest tag to set up my server. The reason I'm not going to be demoing that today is because it takes a little bit of time to have our server spin up. So let's go ahead and go back to our server instance. So the first thing that we should probably explore is the admin tab. You'll notice that there is a exclamation point, a red exclamation point here. It will not disappear until you set up access control. And this is definitely the first thing that you want to set up, because otherwise anyone, if they have your IP, can just access your Rancher instance. So my login username will be Amy. I'll set up a super secret password here, and I will enable local authentication. You'll also notice that there is a bunch of other different means to set up authentication, and you should just use whatever you prefer. Again, more information about this is in the documentation. So let's go ahead and label local authentication. What happens after we enable local authentication is that Rancher will turn on authentication automatically, and it will automatically log you in as that admin user that you just created. So you can see here that I am in the admin role, my username is Amy, and I am logged in. So the next thing that we can look at is the Accounts tab. So what the Accounts tab is I can add other users, and the user that I want to add here is, let's just call this user. We can generate a password. You'll note here that we have two different account types. One is user and one is admin. Today I don't want to escalate this account type to admin, so I'm just going to add them as a user. And you'll see later what we can do with our user accounts that we've just created. I'm going to go ahead and create this. Another thing that we can explore in our admin tab is the audit logs. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So again, once authentication is turned on, what the audit logs does is that it shows us what users are making changes and with what API calls these users are being made. So on the right here, you can see my user, Amy. I've done API password create, API account create. So you can see that what I've just done is I created a new account, the one that I just showed you, which was user. And you can do this to kind of trace the activity of what your users are doing. Under the admin tab, we also have this option here, which is called processes. So because I just sort of spun up this server, there's not much going on, so I don't have anything really running here. But there's lots of options that I'll click through that you can see on your own time. Is that I have a lot of information about processes, which is useful for you later on to troubleshoot or debug different things going on in your server. So these are things that have recently completed. The next thing I want to show you is high availability. So again, today we do not have an HA set up, so there's not much information that I can show you here. But if you did have an HA set up, what you can do is have information about your UIDs here, as well as various other IDs and addresses. Awesome, so we're done exploring the admin tab. I'll show you the settings tab later on in this demonstration. And the next thing I want to do is kind of show to you what Rancher environments are and how we can manipulate and interact with them. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to this tab here and manage environments. you'll notice that I am already in an environment. I am in a default environment. What automatically happens once you create new users or you're logged in as a user is that you will be registered into a default environment. So what environments are that we use these to isolate resources. For example, some example environments that you can create are dev environments, perhaps a production environment, and then maybe a test environment. Environments are owned by users or groups. So for instance, the user that you just saw me create just now. And also hosts and Rancher resources belong to environments. So examples of Rancher resources are, for instance, containers, infrastructure services, and other similar things like that. So what I'm going to do now is actually create an environment template. And I'll explain to you what an environment template is in a second. So here, again, we are under Manage Environments. And then here we see environment templates. So I'm going to click on Add Template here. So let me first explain what an environment template is. So environment templates define infrastructure services. So for instance, you can see here we have different orchestration frameworks that we can launch within a new environment that we will be launching from this template. We have application infrastructure services, external DNS services, management services, networking services, storage services, framework, and all this sort of stuff. So actually what I'm going to do is enable the Rancher NFS service. So I'm going to click on Enable here. And so let's just call this NFS-demo. I'm going to pause my screen so I can pull up the IP address for my NFS server because I don't really want to show you all of the other IPs that I have on my DigitalOcean account. So let me find this. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to enter the IP address. The base directory that I have is data. And I keep everything else as a default. I'm going to hit configure. So let's go ahead and create this template. So I will call this demo template. And so what we have, again, as a summary for our demo template is that we have the orchestration framework catalog enabled, and we also have the Rancher NFS infrastructure service enabled. So I'm going to go ahead and create this. So here on the bottom here for environment templates, you can see that we have the demo template as an option. So next, what I'm going to do is if I add a new environment, I can see that I have demo template here, and then I'm going to call this demo2 environment. So what I'm currently doing is launching a new environment with this demo template environment template. The other thing that I want to show you while I'm here is that I can actually add users to this environment. So I'm going to click on Add User. We can see that our users have all kinds of different roles that we can set this user as. So they can either be a member, an owner, a read-only user, or restricted. I'm going to click on read only. You can go through the documentation as to what specific permissions each of these has, but read only is pretty intuitive in the sense that this user will be unable to create any host. They're not really able to create, update, or delete any infrastructure services. They're basically only allowed to click through our environment and kind of just like look at everything or read through everything. So they only have read-only permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and create this. And I'm going to click on the demo2 environment. And let's go ahead and look at our infrastructure services actually within Stacks infrastructure. We can see that this is launched with an NFS infrastructure stack. I actually won't be interacting with the Demo 2 environment because I don't have any pre-launched hosts, which takes a while to set up. So I'm going to go back to default, but that's just to sort of show you how environments are set up and how our environment templates work. So here I have my default environment that I have pre-set up with some hosts. I'm going to go ahead and click on the host tab. So here what I have are actually 2 DigitalOcean instances of hosts that I've registered. So they each have the labels demo equals true, and I have host 1 equals true and host 2 equals true. You'll see why these labels are useful later when I start scheduling my containers on top of them. So let's go ahead and demonstrate how to add a host. So here in my add host panel, we can see that I have a couple of options. First, I'm going to demonstrate the custom option. So what this is essentially you can have any provider instance, cloud instance set up, and as long as it is a Ubuntu OS, then I can just copy and paste this command. I have a Docker set up on there, and I can copy and paste this command onto that instance, and we will be able to set up a host through that. So let me open up my Ubuntu. So here what I have is an Amazon instance. I have Docker installed onto here. I'm going to paste this command. And let me explain to you what's happening as I'm running this command. So the way that we have hosts register against our Rancher server is that what we're doing is installing a Rancher agent onto our host. So that's what this Docker command is doing. So our Rancher agent is very important because it is used to communicate to our Rancher server. It also has passwords and tokens to authenticate against our Rancher server. And once that initial communication is made, our host then registers against the server. So I've done this. Now we're going to go ahead and click close. And awesome. Here you can see that we have a host now registering against our server. I'm going to actually add another host to demonstrate to you how we can use other cloud providers to register hosts. So for instance, I'm going to click on DigitalOcean, and it's asking for my access token. I'm going to pause my screen again so you don't see that access token. Let's unpause that screen again. I'm going to paste the access token that I just copied, and I can configure the droplet. Let's call this Amy-demo-host123. You can toggle how many hosts you want created on that provider here. You can toggle what region you want it to be created in. I'm going to use all of these default options here. You note that you can specify what size you want your host to be. And here, you've seen my labels before that I showed you. It was demo equals true as well as host 1 equals true. This is where you can add labels onto your hosts. So I'm going to go ahead and click create here. And again, you can see that a DigitalOcean instance is being created, and the host is being registered against my Rancher server. Now, let's go ahead. Oh, so one thing that I would like to kind of highlight is, so let's go back to this Amazon instance. If you are running a Docker version that we do not support, then what will happen is you'll see an error message saying unsupported Docker version. It's not that like the host installation won't work. It's just, we're just saying that that Docker version is not within our test suite. So if you come across any bugs, you should definitely check to make sure that your Rancher version is up to date to the versions that we support. Now let's go ahead and go back to our infrastructure tab and start looking at some our infrastructure services and start looking at some stacks. So I'm going to go under stack and click on all. And what all does, it's a combination of user and infrastructure stacks. So I'm going to go ahead and click on infrastructure stacks. So what are infrastructure stacks? Infrastructure stacks are...
Oh, sorry. Hey, Amy.
Yeah,
can I pause you real quick? Someone asked a question, or basically if there's any integration with OpenStack. So I was just thinking if you could go back to the host tab and kind of cover over the options of hosts, like where you could launch in different cloud providers and how you could add in other ones.
Sure. So here we have these following providers. So Amazon EC2, Azure, DigitalOcean, and Packet. And in terms of adding other providers, we can click on Manage Available Machine Drivers here. You should note that I am in the admin role, so you can see that we have other cloud providers here. OpenStack is here, as well as just a bunch of other ones. The other option that I would suggest you looking, oops, let me go back to the add host, is again for custom. So as long as you have an instance set up, then you should have Docker run on it. And if you just copy and paste this, you should be able to register against our server. But in terms of convenience, we have these following machine drivers available. Thanks for the question. So let's go back and go ahead to our stacks again. And I'm going to go back and explain to you what an infrastructure stack is. Again, these are stacks that Rancher sort of has set up for you to have all of the plumbing work. And in user stacks, you'll note that I don't have anything up and running, but I'll demonstrate that later. So let's go back to infrastructure stacks and kind of explain to you what all of these things are. Health check is that it is responsible for communicating between hosts and instances. So if any of our hosts have issues communicating back to our server, you'll see issues in here. So this is our health check service with a bunch of different containers within that to handle that service that it does for you. The next thing that you'll see here is IPsec that deals with a lot of networking things, and then we have networking services, which deals with things like DNS and metadata. And this last thing is super important, is a scheduler, where it schedules services for us on different hosts with different scheduling rules. And I'll sort of demonstrate to you how the scheduling rules can work. But scheduler is a stack that has a bunch of different services in it that makes this happen for us. Again, I'll come back and definitely make sure to demonstrate some fun things we can do within the stack tab later. And I'm going to kind of explore and explain to you our infrastructure tab. So we've already seen a lot of what the add host tab can do. I'm going to click on the container tab. So this tab will show you a lot of information about what containers are running, what state they're in, what name they have, the IP address they're running on, what image they have. You can definitely go ahead and click through that on your own time. We have a storage drivers tab. So later I'll be demonstrating to you Rancher NFS. So currently we don't have much going on here. So I can explain to you, I can click on this tab after I have Rancher NFS up and running. We have secrets. To have this work, what you need to do is launch the secrets infrastructure service from our catalog library. Again, later on in the presentation, I'll kind of click through catalog and show you what a catalog actually is. The next thing is within infrastructure tab, we have certificates. So this is used for load balancing. So for instance, if you wanted to have SSL termination, you can add your SSL certs here under Add Certificate. You can have, add your private key here, your certificate here, or change certificates here if you have them. And so, like, if you wanted to have HTTPS up and running, you can. You definitely need to make sure you want to add a certificate there. Lastly, we have registries. So registry is super fun. Let me click on Add Registry. So for instance, if you have a private registry on Docker Hub or Quay, or you can even add your own custom registry here, you can enter your username and your password there, and you'll be able to pull down images from your private registry. So let me go ahead and go to our stack section again and start launching some containers and really showing you why Rancher is so powerful. So I'm going to go to user stacks. Don't worry if you don't understand what a stack or a service is right now. I'll definitely make sure to explain to you. The first thing I'm going to do is just do a quick demo of an app that I'm going to spin up, and then I'll backtrace and explain to you what a stack and a service is. So I'm going to do add stack. Today, this stack that I'm going to create is going to be called blog. I don't want to import any Docker Compose or Rancher Compose files. I'm going to click create. Then what I'm going to do is add a service. Today, my service name, I will call it Ghost. I will select the Ghost image. Here you'll notice this option here called always pull image before creating. If you're a developer, definitely make sure to check that off. So often what happens in the dev workflow is that people will be updating images, testing them, and uploading more images, and then developers will come back asking, like, why aren't these changes reflecting? This totally should work. It's because your server won't, or your host won't always be pulling the image because it'll have it locally. So definitely make sure to check that off. For the port map, what I'm going to do is specify the public host port and the private container port. So my public port is going to be 2368. My private port is also going to be 2368. So the public host port, what that is that it is the port publicly exposed for you to be able to access from the internet, right? And then the private container port is what the public port is being routed to against the container. So I know they're both the same port right now, which may be a little confusing to you, but they both do different things. And the next thing that I want to show you is, let me actually click through some of these things. So you'll see that we have a lot of different tabs here while we're setting up this one service. So the command tab, you can run command upon startup of your container. Definitely make sure to click through the documentation and all of this. You can add environment variables. We have volume, so if you have a exported volume, I'll also demonstrate this later on with Rancher NFS. You can add that here. We have a networking tab where you can deal with different networking things, a security host tab, secrets, if you had secrets that you wanted to add to your container. We have a health check tab. So the two that I really wanted to focus on today were the labels and the scheduling tab. So I'm going to add a label for my container here. So let's just call this demo example, and I'm going to add the value true. So the reason this is important, you'll see later, is within the scheduling tab. So the scheduling rule, you can see we have different conditions, fields, keys. What this can do is filter against different labels that either your container or your host or your services have. Today, what I'm going to do is add a scheduling rule against the host label. So we actually won't be using this label today, but I just wanted to show you where you can add this service label. So I'm going to add the condition, the host must. So we also have the option should not, must not, have a host label of demo equals true. So what I'm doing here is that I am making sure that this service that I'm scheduling will only run on to the labels, the host labels with the value of demo equals true. I'm going to go ahead and create that. So let's go ahead and click on host to really show you what I mean here. So which of our hosts have demo equals true? So we see this one does and this one does. And awesome, you can see that our ghost container, I've only scaled it to a scale of 1, right? So we won't see on either one. But what I have is that it will only be scheduled onto this host. Let's go ahead and go back to our user stacks. And what I want to do now is click on this and click on this port. Let's see if our ghost container is spun up. And awesome, you can see that we have the ghost blogging platform. It's spun up. It's just a demo container and service that I've kind of shown you to see what this is. And you'll notice that we are clicking on the exposed port of 2368 that I specified before. So let's go ahead and click out of that. I'm going to go back to user stacks. And now you'll recall that I was going to kind of follow up and explain to you what a stack and a service actually is. So I'm going to explain that to you in the next demonstration. So let's create another stack. And what I want to call this is Nginx. And here I'm going to click on create. So what is a stack? A stack is a grouping of services. And so it is a grouping of services. And what I'm going to do is add a service here. And what a service is essentially a grouping of many containers in the sense that you can scale this. I'm going to scale this to 10. And all of these containers will have the same information. So I'm going to call this service Nginx as well. And the image that I'm going to use is actually an image from a coworker. And all this image does is once I hit a specific route, it will show me what container ID that it's running on, okay? So here I have it scaled to 10. I have this image, this Nginx image, and I want to make sure I add the scheduling rule of demo equals true. And the reason why this demo is interesting is because I will also add a load balancer. And so essentially the goal is that, let me call this Nginx load balancer. The goal is that you'll be able to see which container our load balancer is routing us to. And once I hit refresh a couple times, you'll see the ID of the different containers that our load balancer is routing us to. So let's go ahead and use port 8081. We're going to choose the service Nginx, the service that you just saw me create, right? And the container port that we're using is port 80. That is also the port specified on the image that my coworker created. And let's go ahead and click create here. And let's go ahead and give that a second to activate and start running. So again, what this demo will show you is to show you the different containers that my load balancer is running against. And let's actually click on host to kind of show you where Nginx containers are running against. Again, remember, I specified the label of demo equals true. You'll see that I have these Nginx containers here. I have 10 of them, right? So I have 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9 here, 2, 5, 6, 8, 10 here. So let's go back to my user stacks, click on Nginx. Awesome, so this has spun up. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I think my load balancer and Nginx instances might still be loading there. So let's give it a second. I'm going to also type out the endpoint of name.html. That is the endpoint that shows me what container ID my load balancer is routing me to. So this might be a moment for debugging. So let's go ahead and see what host it's running on, because maybe the host is actually faulty. So I'm going to go ahead and try to hunt down where my load balance is running on. It looks like it is the Amazon host. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and click on that and try to restart this up again. So let me go ahead and click delete. I'm not sure if it's quite the load balancer issue or the Nginx issue, so I'm going to add load balancer again, go through this again, and let's do port 8081. Choose a service, Nginx, port 80. Let's try scheduling against the demo equals true label. Oops, I didn't name this yet, so nginx-lb. And click create. Again, let's give it a second to spin up. In the meantime, let me think of if there's anything that I can kind of show you what's going on. But this is good in terms of kind of learning how to debug my various instances. So after this, I will be talking to you about the Rancher CLI. So what you're seeing here is that we're interacting with everything via the UI. Via the Rancher CLI, you can interact with our Rancher server via your terminal. And then I will also be talking to you about catalogs and what cool things we can do with that. Awesome. So this is active now. Great. So we are at the Welcome to Nginx page. I'm going to hit the endpoint name.html to see what container ID we're currently running on. So the container ID we're currently running on starts with 40. Let's try refreshing a couple times. Awesome. So once I refreshed, we can see that we've just been routed to a different container ID that starts with 33, which is pretty awesome. So we can definitely make sure that there are always available containers by scaling up the number of containers that we have that our load balancer is load balancing against. Next, let me go ahead and show you how the Rancher CLI works. So the way you can download the Rancher CLI is in this lower right-hand corner. And you can click on whatever operating system that you're using. I actually already have that downloaded. What it does is it downloads a zip file for you. You can unzip that, and then it downloads the Rancher binary for you. So let me go ahead and open the terminal that I have. Actually, before I do that, what I want to do is click on this API tab, because this is super important for you later on to be able to authenticate your CLI tool against the server. So let's click on keys. And what we're going to do here is add account API key. I'm going to call it amy-demo. Let's go ahead and click create. Here you can see the big yellow warning sign. Do not click out of this until you have stored your key somewhere. So let me go ahead and open where I have this tool. I believe it is this one. Oh, sorry, wrong host. Awesome, here we go. So here you can see that I have my Rancher tool binary here. So what I'm going to do is run Rancher space --URL. And what I'm going to use is the server IP. So I'm going to copy and paste that up here in the URL entry point. And you can see that it has the full HTTP and then IP address and then port. And the next thing I'm going to do is enter my access key. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that. And then I'm going to add my secret key here. After this, by the way, I'll definitely show you the documentation for Rancher CLI to highlight some important things. And the next part, what I want to do is specify what environment I kind of want to see stats for. So the way you can see what environment ID you have is in your URL here. It says env1a5, so that's the environment ID it is. So I'm going to enter 1a5. And then the next command that I want to do is I want to run a PS. So what this will do is sort of show me all the services and things like that that are running within that environment. Awesome. So we can see that we have our blog Ghost service, we have our Nginx service, and we have our Nginx, Nginx load balance service. I always pronounce that Nginx for some reason. In any case, let me go ahead and show you where this is in the documentation. But before that, I'm going to run rancher-help. Our Rancher CLI has a lot of really awesome functionality that you can sort of flip through in your own time through either the help page or in the docs that I will show you in just a second. You can see different stats about your environment, about your services. You can run different commands to get stacks, to even get stacks up and running. Let me go ahead and click into our docs here. And so inside our docs, you can scroll down here to Rancher CLI. I'm going to click on Rancher CLI. So you'll notice that what I did is to add my access key and my secret key, I passed them as flag options. Obviously, you don't always want to be doing that every single time. So another thing that you can do is actually export those values as environment variables so that you don't have to keep on running, that flag every single time. Cool. So now that I've shown you the Rancher CLI, let me go ahead and show you sort of what catalogs are. So I'm going to click on Catalogs All. So what catalogs are that you have two different kinds of catalogs. One are library catalogs. So these are catalogs that are like Rancher certified, or catalogs that we really want you to use. And those are all listed here. These are, you can kind of think of them as like fundamentals and really awesome catalogs that we have approved. So catalog itself is that it is a set of infrastructure stacks that are launched for you to either have apps up and running, or for instance, if you wanted to have Kubernetes up and running, what a catalog will do is launch all of these stacks for you. Let me go ahead and click on community. Our Rancher community is super active. We always have community contributions for catalogs. And so for instance, you could see Datadog is here, DigitalOcean DNS. These are catalogs that our communities have contributed for apps that they want you to try out, or different services. And it's just a one-click sort of thing where all you have to do is perhaps specify some different configurations that they ask you to specify. And then after that, everything will just sort of automatically run and is pretty smooth. So another thing that I kind of want to show you is adding private catalogs. There's two different kinds of private catalogs. One is an environment catalog, another is a global catalog. So environment catalogs, what they are that they're only accessible per the current environment that you are in. So what I did was I clicked on manage catalogs, and what you can do here is add catalog. So for instance, if I test, here you enter a get fetchable URL, and then you can specify the branch here. Today I won't be adding a catalog, but I just wanted to show you where that is. So let's go ahead and go back to our admin tab under settings. And this is where you can add a global catalog. So again, that was admin settings. And here you can click on add catalog. What a global catalog is first of all, you must be in the admin user role to be able to access this page. And a global catalog is accessible across all environments. So any environment can, launch these infrastructure services. So it's the same as that previous screen where, you can add a name to this catalog, you can add a get fetchable URL, and then whatever branch that catalog lives in. So let me go ahead and click on documentation to show you where you can see more things about these catalogs. So you can click on Rancher catalog here, click on catalog, read through that information, as well as creating private catalogs. Something I also want to show you is github.com/rancher/community catalog. This is the GitHub repo that we have set up for our community to submit different catalogs. So if you either wanted to contribute something yourself, or perhaps you wanted to see some examples of catalog templates and things like that, you can go ahead and click through them. So for instance, there's different config YAMLs for templates. We have different versions, things like that, or Docker Compose files. So definitely make sure to check that out or contribute yourself. And there's two other things that I wanted to show you. One is persistent storage with Rancher NFS. So I actually don't have a Rancher NFS infrastructure stack set up, but I am going to show you how to do that now via the catalog. So that's pretty awesome. So go ahead and click on all. So you'll remember that previously I had an environment template set up with Rancher NFS. So this is useful if, say, for instance, you forgot to add that in the template. You can go ahead, no worries, go click on the catalog, and it will probably be available here. So I'm going to click on Search NFS, View Details, NFS Server. What I'm going to do is pause my screen again so I can pull out that NFS IP, press play again, set my NFS server, and then export base library. So let's do data, use the defaults, and hit launch. Okay, so let me go to infrastructure stack. So you'll see this pull up under infrastructure stack. This is the NFS stack. What I'm going to do is click on user stacks. I'm going to add a stack and do a NFS demo stack. What I'm going to do now is also show you where you can find more information about persistent storage services. It is under infrastructure services, and then you can click on persistent storage service. I'm going to scroll down and actually copy and paste this Docker Compose file into here, and I'm going to add an option TTY true. Cool. So what I'm going to do is add a stack and add this service to that stack. Oh, looks like I have an error here. Let me go ahead and delete that. I probably did some sort of typo error. So let me go back to user, add a stack, NFS-demo, paste that, press enter, TTY true. I don't think that has any typos. And if I do, then I'll just add a service to this. Cool. So let me actually pause for a second and show you what I just did. So I have a BusyBox image, just like a basic image. What I've done is I have an exported volume called bar. And then I have, for this service, I am using the driver Rancher NFS, which is the stack that I just launched. And I'm mounting this external volume onto the container mount point called var lib storage, right? So I'm going to add another service through a UI here, so you can also sort of see how that works through the UI. So I'm going to call this foo2, and I'm going to select the image BusyBox. And then I am going to click on the Volumes tab, Add Volume. I have an external volume that I want, and it's going to be bar. I also want to mount it onto var lib storage. The volume driver will be called rancher-nfs. Let's go ahead and create that. So now what I want to do is, so I have two services. Each of these services within my NFS demo stack have each one container within them, right? So now we're kind of tying all of these terminologies together. So I'm going to click on foo. And let's go ahead and exec a shell into foo. What I'm going to do is cd into /var/lib/storage. You'll remember that this is the mount point that my Rancher NFS volume, my exported volume, is mounting against. So I'm going to do touch test.txt, enter. Let's do an ls. So what my expectation is if I go into the other foo2 service and I exec into the one container that has, and I also go to the mount point var lib storage, I should also expect to see test.txt available within that mount point. So let's go ahead and close out of this. I'm going to go back to user stacks, NFS demo. Now I'm clicking on foo2. Remember, what I just did is I created the test.txt in the foo service container. So let me go ahead and exec into this. So let me cd/var, lib storage. Let me do an ls. Awesome, and you could see test.txt there, and there's lots of fun, persistent storage things that you can do with our Rancher NFS driver. And you can also click through the catalog to see other different catalog infrastructure services that we have. So the very last thing is that I'm going to show you the Rancher Kubernetes setup. First, I'll show you how to create that, and then I'll show you a Kubernetes setup that I've already created. The reason I have that separated is because it takes a while for my host to spin up. So let's go ahead and manage environments. You can either add a new template using Kubernetes as a orchestration service and then add other infrastructure services to that. What I'm just going to do is go straight to add environment, click on Kubernetes. Let me do amy-ks2. And again, you can add different users or whatever you want to do within this environment, set them as different roles, click create. Let's go ahead and go into that environment. So again, you'll see, wait, add at least one host, because obviously our containers don't have anything to run on right now without a host. So after you add the host, our infrastructure services will start spinning up. I already have a environment with all of that set up for you. So here I have one host, and I have all of my infrastructure services on that one host. Let's go ahead and click on infrastructure stacks here. And here you can see all different sorts of stacks. Within them, you have different sorts of services that make Kubernetes just work. Whenever I run Kubernetes, I always use Rancher to run my cluster because it just configures everything for you. It removes the learning overhead of setting up a Kubernetes cluster. I won't demo more things with this because we actually have another Kubernetes training that you can check out on your own. Actually, let me go ahead and click on the CLI. So you can go ahead and click through this. We also have Helm installed on here. So let's just try Helm. I think the command is Helm help. So we have Helm on here. We have kubectl here. This is just a shell that we have for you. Another thing that you can try doing is actually execing into your host and then execing into your kubectl container. That way you have more of a direct interaction with your kubectl. And I will end that presentation there. Remember, we also have a Kubernetes training that you should definitely check out. And thank you so much for your time. The last thing that I wanted to do to conclude is that the next thing that we want you all to do is go ahead and click on check out our Rancher's Kubernetes training. That's the thing that I just told you about. If you want to learn more about the different features that we have for Rancher plus Kubernetes. And if you want to try Kubernetes yourself, we have try.rancher.com, and you should definitely check that out on your own time, as well as our docs. So thank you so much for your time. I am definitely open to any questions that you might have now, and Denise will be helping me answer questions as well.
Hey, Amy.
Yeah.
Someone asked if you could demo a failed rolling upgrade and rollback.
A failed rolling upgrade in rollback. All right, let me go ahead and X out of this. Hold on a second.
Basically, so I don't know if we covered it. I was busy answering the questions. Where if you start a service, after you start a service, you have the ability to upgrade that service, and then say you make a issue with it and how it can roll back. Okay, cool. So let's see. So everything here is up to date. Let me try. So you can actually you don't have to do it from the catalog. You can do it from any of these. Cool. I would demo it, but I don't actually have a setup available. Well, actually, let me see. I think maybe I can try pulling up one of my Apache catalogs, and then if you can give me your keyboard and mouse control, I can actually just demo it real quick. Probably, I think what they're looking for.
Let me see how I do it via the control panel. There you go. Do you have control now? There we go.
Yeah,
cool.
It's a little choppy, but I got it. Okay. So basically, for any of the services that you start up, what you can do is you can always upgrade it. So say you realize that you want to make a change. Actually, let's do the blog just because. Say I want to make a change to this, so I can upgrade my service. Instead, say I wanted to change where the port was. I wanted to change it to port 80, and then say this will probably make it break. Where if you could change the image name. So say you put a tag that doesn't exist or something else. I don't know what tags it is. So I'm going to purposely put the fact that I want to put this image, the incorrect image name. Say I made a typo and I didn't realize it. So here, when you upgrade your services, you have the ability to upgrade for your containers. You won't be able to change the scale. That is done by the edit, but for upgrade specifically, you can decide what batch size you want to do. So how many containers do you want stopped at a time between where the old containers are stopped and the new containers are started. And so that's what batch size. You can define what the batch interval is. So you can define how many seconds you want between stopping and starting the services. And then by default, the behavior is that you stop old containers, then you start new containers. You can change that behavior so that you can start the new containers before stopping. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to upgrade my service. So what should happen is this should become unhealthy. I'll click on the service so we can see kind of what it's doing. So it's stopping the existing old container. Once this gets stopped, it should start a new one. And the new one, you can see immediately that it says upgrading, failed to allocate. Let's go back. Let's go back to the service. So you can see that it says failed to allocate my container because basically the image doesn't exist. So this convoluted message says index.docker.io/ghost1 failed to pull. Basically means that that image doesn't exist. So here are my options. I have the ability to roll back. So I can either cancel the upgrade, so that will just stop upgrading if you're in the middle of upgrading. That's an option. But here I can distinctly roll back what it will do is it will start up that previous container that I had running that it had stopped, and then it will delete the error container. So I'm actually going to show you what happens when you upgrade successfully. So say I just change my port here, and I upgrade. So this time it will be successful because I don't have any errors in terms of the image name. And then when it gets stopped, let's go. I'm going to go to the stack page so you can take a look. What happens is it'll go into upgrading, and then it'll get into what's called an upgraded state. And so basically that's when you can kind of verify, like, hey, let me click on port 80, see that I can actually access what I need to. Everything is good. Therefore, I want to now confirm my upgrade or finish my upgrade, which basically means now we will delete those stopped old containers, so you're basically not able to roll back anymore. So I can finish my upgrade and have it all upgraded and up and running. So hopefully that shows what you are looking for in terms of a upgrade. Let me see if there are any other questions real quick. Okay, let me see. Sorry, I'm just reading. It's hard to read and talk at the same time. I'm just trying to see what are some things. I know we're past the hour, so I know obviously if you need to go. There's someone who asked for if the Rancher NFS driver should work on an Azure host. Yes, I think as long as it doesn't matter where, like, you can add Azure hosts into Rancher, and then what Rancher does is it starts a service for the Rancher NFS driver, and you just need to make sure that, you know, the IP or your mount point is accessible from where the service is, and then it should work on Azure as well. Let's see. Okay, so this is a great question that I know. So there's someone who asked if we have several nodes or hosts and one node goes offline, will it recreate containers on other hosts? So the default answer is if you launch a service with no health checks, it will not, depending on what happens to your host or why your host goes offline in the state it's in, it will not actually, it will not make any assumptions that those containers that are on that host that's now offline are non-existent, because the Rancher agent container on that host, just because that agent container can no longer communicate to the Rancher server container, it doesn't mean that those containers, the other containers of your service, have actually stopped. So if you really want to be able to, sorry, I'm just pulling up Amy's. If you want to be able to make sure that, you know, your service is up and running and you always have a specific scale, what you want to do is when you add your service, you want to always make sure you add in a health check. By adding a health check, basically that allows Rancher to start monitoring your services for you, where it will, you know, if you say you have a scale of 10 and then say a host goes down and there are 2 containers on that host, Rancher will detect that, you know, 2 of those containers are now considered unhealthy based on this health check, and it will automatically launch 2 new containers on different hosts that are active and healthy in Rancher to replace the ones that are on the, you know, disconnected host, the one that it can't reach and doesn't know the status of. Let me see, sorry. Okay, so there, I know someone asked a question about, it looks like ingress versus load balancer. That's actually very Kubernetes specific. If you, we do cover that. We cover specifically how ingresses work in Kubernetes, what an ingress, the difference between ingress and service, which are very similar concepts in Kubernetes. That occurs in our Kubernetes training. So please attend that. That would be better. So there's, let's see. Sorry, there's a lot of questions that are just coming in. It's hard for me to just read them and answer them all at the same time.
There's one question that says, if they install Rancher OS, do they need to install an orchestrator? The
Okay,
answer
yep, I see that one. So, no,
yeah.
so Rancher OS and Rancher are like two completely separate products, I'd say. So one is like a operating system. So the benefits of Rancher OS is the fact that like you can start it up, and at least what I like it is that you can start it up and Docker is immediately installed. You can actually specify usually which version of Docker you want based on like when you start up your Rancher OS. So you can pick, I think like we have defaults for 1.12.6 or I think 17.03. You can choose any of those so that when you start it up, you'll have a specific Docker version. You can also switch between the Docker versions pretty easily. That's just it's like a lightweight operating system that you can use, and it just has Docker installed. It is a completely separate product from Rancher, which is what we've shown today. Rancher itself is a container orchestration. It helps you, easily orchestrate your containers. You would need to actually install Rancher on top of Rancher OS to be able to get what we've demoed today. Hopefully that answers those questions. It looks like the questions are slowing down. There's one in terms of upgrade. So depending upgrading, let me see, sorry, I have to go back to, maybe I'm gonna take over your computer again.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So for upgrading, basically it will all depend on how you've installed Rancher to begin with. And so in the docs, there's steps about it, but like for example, for what Amy has done today, the way you upgrade is really simple. Since she just launched the Rancher server container that's using the internal MySQL database, all you need to do is stop you can follow the docs where basically it says to stop the existing container. I think we have it actually, then you create a volume which uses the data that was in the internal MySQL database, and then all you need to do is start a new container pointing to that data so that when you start up, you would be able to upgrade and essentially get all the data from the previous installation. There are variations based on how you have installed Rancher itself. For example, if you use an external database, you wouldn't do those steps. All you would do is relaunch Rancher server with the new version that you want to do, pointing to your external database. So there are a couple options of how you can upgrade. It's really simple just because everything is in a container. Let's see. Sorry, I keep losing my questions tab. Okay, I think that's like most of the questions that have come through. Like we said, if you have any more questions, we have our user Slack. Our community is really active. If you can find probably me and Amy on it. The community is much more responsive than maybe pointing exactly at us. But if you have any specific questions, feel free to email us. My email is denise@rancher.com. Hers is amy@rancher.com. If we can't answer questions, we can always forward it to those who can. We do these trainings every month. We're going to probably start rotating between who does the presentation just to give it some variety. So if you feel free to come back again, you can ask specific questions and we can try and demo those. Usually we do not do more. What we cover today is the basics of what we cover every training, so we won't really go into detail into any other, but if there are specific topics you want to see, just email us and we can talk to our marketing team about adding a training for that as well. So thanks everyone. Thank you so much, Amy. That was great.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, everyone.
And we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.